Welcome back to the Project Power Couple with Colton and Haleigh, providing comfort and confidence to your real estate experience.
Hi.
Hi.
What's up?
Oh, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's new?
Oh, nothing.
Speaking of things that are new,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the settlement, where things sit today, compensation-wise, contracts, what sorts of things are going on?
Yeah, nothing really. Not a lot of changes. So obviously there's been some big things happening, and I think it's important that we talk about them, know what's going on, kind of how we're implementing it and taking it all the way from like top leadership down to our agents, how that's working. And also kind of remembering that our consumers, our clients, they are looking for a professional. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for that professional to take them through this.
Yeah.
They might be seeing headlines that are scary or confusing, or little triggers that are trying to make them clickbait, right?
Yeah.
So being that professional, and it's important that you understand it from all sides so that you can truly be that person.
Right.
Also, Kinley decided that I needed some tattoos that did not come off all the way. So this is my Kinley tattoo charm bracelet that's happening. She has one too. Sorry, school. It's still on her wrist, but I felt like I needed to explain what was going on right there. So it's been going on for a couple of years, right? And then finally it all happened, and there was this big August 17th date that was lingering, and like 2000, right? Like the world's gonna end.
Y2K.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the world's gonna end.
When the clock strikes midnight.
Guess what? People need shelter. People still need a professional. People still need guidance.
So
Nothing stopped.
Right.
Right? We still had to keep doing real estate. That's all of our eggs are in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we do. So nothing really stopped there. The thing that changed is that you have to have a buyer rep before you can view properties. Like, okay. So that's great.
Yeah.
That means that you can't go into a doctor's office. You can't go anywhere without signing away your life before you get a service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same kind of thing. Texas was luckily one of the states that already had a buyer-tenant representation agreement.
Yeah.
We've already had that in place. I've never been in a brokerage that did not require it. So for us, that part didn't change, just the time frame of making sure it was done prior to viewing properties instead of maybe with that first offer, or once you've kind of already started working together and established that. Now you have to shift the way that you go about that to make sure that you're getting it done prior to that appointment, which is great, right? Words like, I only work in written agreements.
Mm-hmm.
That agreement can be a day, can be the weekend, can be 6 months.
Right.
But now we're able to say, hey, just so everything's very clear up front, this is how I fully represent you and not the seller. This is how I can ensure that all of my efforts are going to be compensated for, just like any other profession would. And this is going to set expectations, explain what's going on prior to going out and viewing those properties.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty cool, right? That makes it sound really, really simple. And sometimes it is that simple, and sometimes it's not.
Well, but it really is that simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? I only operate under written agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we do is going to be put in writing.
Yes.
And I'm going to document everything that I do for you as your agent.
Absolutely.
And show you that not only am I telling you that I'm worth it and here's my value, but here's what I've done for you along the process and course of this transaction.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a long time about making sure that you get loud and explain your value.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've been talking about here in the office and with other members of our community about. Yeah. I used to maybe not tell the buyer everything that was happening because I wanted them to think that like, this is easy, Haley's got it, no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being like, well, actually, I spent about 12 hours just today talking to the 15 different listing agents for that property that we're going to go see, narrowing out that those aren't going to work for you.
Yeah.
So, I hadn't necessarily been getting loud about all the things I did behind the scenes when that might not have been the best service because they need to know all the things that we're doing.
Well, it's a shift from how we talk about it. So previously it was, don't let the client know all the crazy stuff that's going on throughout the process.
Right, like the duck.
Yeah. Be the duck.
Yeah.
Right. We want them to feel the very smooth flight and landing of the process. And after, maybe when we get to closing, we'll tell them how crazy the other person was or some of the weirdness that happened. Whereas now that has let everybody think that it really is just that easy. There aren't
Right.
meetings that come up. Now it is, hey, I was on the phone last night till 9:00 arguing with this other guy because of these 4 things.
Yeah, and there's a professional way to do that. We're not just like complaining and bitching about all of the other people, but
Right.
we're professionally letting them know, here are all the things that I really did for you.
Exactly.
And so, that's kind of changed. But then you go to the seller side.
Mhm.
And we have to remember that this was a national situation,
Mhm.
right? On a national level, things have changed. So, national rules.
Yeah.
And then there's state rules. And then there's what your local board or your localness is doing.
Uh-huh.
And then there's your brokerage. And then if you're on a team or however that goes. So there's a lot of layers to get to how to implement this in your practice today. Now, across the board nationally, you got to have a buyer rep before you go into a property.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. We should have already been doing it. We were 80% of the way there, so this just helps us get there. But it really matters who you're listening to right now, because not all the states are dealing with it the same way.
You mean all the random things I see on TikTok or Instagram are not always true?
Maybe not. I mean, maybe. I hope that you come across us on Instagram or TikTok and you're like, I can trust
no,
this.
if it's us, it's true.
But it's hard because, I get our agents, each other, other industry professionals are sending me reels and sending me content that's like, oh, it's a simple, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but Texas doesn't have that rule, or that's not how we word it. We're a title state. Now, other states are still attorney states. They don't have a title company that they're closing with. There's different verbiage. Like, certain states, like the brokerage actually holds the escrow money. Our title company holds the escrow money. So there are things within the way real estate works that are still different in a state-by-state case.
Yeah.
And it really matters who you listen to and what you start implementing into your business. It's really important to make sure from every layer that you talk to your leadership, whoever that is, your broker, your team lead, your mentor, whoever it is, that you're talking to them and making sure that you know how y'all are putting it into practice today. Because we had all these forms roll out and then we had to go correct all the forms that rolled out, and it's this constant change and it's going to take a while to get it there. We still don't even have our 1-to-4 family contract updated yet. Right. So, things are going to be changing. You might see other brokerages be implementing their own forms. You might see brokerages handling things in different ways. There's a lot happening. And if right now you don't have the leadership that's talking about it, if you're not feeling comfortable asking the questions, if you're just kind of riding along like nothing's really changed and I'm just going to keep on trucking, keep on trucking, don't stop, keep going. But you need to make sure that you're talking to that leadership, that you have somebody to talk it out with, because it changes not only from state to state, but from brokerage to brokerage.
That's the scary part.
And real estate's always been the Wild West a little bit, right? And everyone's been able to interpret it and do it differently. But now for us, especially in Texas, there's 2 very distinct ways to handle a listing and to handle compensation. And there's one way how we feel, and then one way that's kind of like prolonging the change, like we're just gonna kind of keep pushing. And it could lead to some confusion. It could lead to some strenuous conversations. It could lead to lots of things. So we want to talk about it. We want to be here for not just our agents. Our agents know that they can call us whenever, that they know that we're going to talk about it. I also feel very confident in what our agents are going out there and saying, because we don't shut up about it. It's in every training. It's in every sales meeting. We've been talking about it for 2 years now, and the last 9 months have been role-playing out ways to get to today without it being a stressful situation. So, they're sending us ways that agents are reacting so we can, explain it to everybody, understand what's going on. But if you don't feel like you have that leadership right now, you need to figure that out, because this is a time when we've always been on the same team. No one gets paid if you don't get to the closing table. That part hasn't changed. But if you don't know how to handle the objections as they're coming, it's going to be significantly harder.
One of the things that we recently, the summit we were at, that I guess it was that if you bring in the listing documents as well as the buyer rep to both the listing presentation and the buyer presentation, that it sounds so stupid because it's so simple, of helping people understand on both sides of the coin
Yes.
how the other person's agreement is going to be written, at least from a perspective of these are the options and the ways that it could be written, and based on how our offer is handled up front is going to allow us to understand how, at least loosely, how their agreement's written, so that we can navigate this contract as best as we can. And it's like the more transparency, the more information we have, the better off we're all going to be. And that simple little tweak I thought was just incredible.
I think that shows two things for me. One, it doesn't matter how many times you hear something, when you're in the right room at the right time, it's going to be able to affect your business, right? With dramatic change, which is amazing. And two, we were talking about it more from an agent standpoint about, hey, agent, you need to know, if you're representing the buyer, you need to know the listing agreement. So you know what that seller's options were, so then you can handle those objections as they come. And hey, listing agent, you need to know the buyer rep agreement so that when the offer comes over, you can understand maybe what their agreement says without having to see that. You know, you have to be able to know both sides. We had never necessarily said, hey, seller, here's the buyer rep agreement, right? Now I have done, here's contracts on both parties so they kind of know what they're signing, because DocuSign is real and not going away, right? Like electronic signatures. So we've always presented that in our appointment so they knew what they were signing and went over the main points and kind of go through it to make us feel more confident that they understand what's happening. We've always done that, but I never showed them the other party's agreement. Yeah. Well, most people who are selling something typically buy something, so they end up signing it anyways, right? But it's a cool point to see, hey seller, I'm going to be completely transparent on how we get paid compensation, but also how the buyer is set up to distribute compensation, so we can fully understand what's happening. So with that, sharing of compensation.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Right, that was part of it. That was kind of what happened. So now, at least in our contract, in our listing agreement in Texas, that Texas Realtors has put out, there are two ways to handle compensation. Also, talk track, change, get rid of commission, everything's compensation. Okay, which has been hard. Everyone, you've been in real estate for how long, and now we're changing a word that we use every day. But there's two ways to do it. So one way would be how it's always been done, which is sharing your compensation. Hey seller, we agree to X amount of compensation to be paid out, and then I'm going to share that as a listing agent with the brokerage, with the buyer broker. And so that would be sharing of compensation. Then there's option B, which is, hey seller, we're agreeing to what me and you, what you're paying me to do the job for you, what my compensation will be. We're doing that. It's going to be up to the buyer to bring their compensation, what they're going to get paid, what that buyer broker is asking, and then you will pay that buyer broker directly. So instead of it going through us, it's just seller to listing to buyer. I mean, you know, it is that simple. And because we are a title state, it's even more simple. It literally already happens at the title company. I was asking multiple of our title reps, okay, so when is the CD going to look like now? Is it changing? And we just pulled up the last 4 that we've done, and it's like, oh, it's already separate. Like, okay. So it's really not a massive change on us. It's one conversation that might look different with that seller. And instead of being scared of that conversation or avoiding that conversation, right? We just did Who Moved My Cheese? Are we going to be nice or not, right? Are we going to adapt and move forward and anticipate this and go ahead and go?
That's not cheese.
We cannot be avoiding that conversation because we didn't take the time to understand both sides. So especially for us, you need to understand how the different options and how they work so that you can best overcome those objections. We really encourage that you stop sharing compensation. Yes, it's still an option, but it feels like that's going to go away. I mean, we are not doing that as a brokerage. We are not. We are decoupling completely, so we're giving the second option.
But to be clear, if you have a seller who is interested in paying or interested in doing something, then that's still the option that we want.
Absolutely. So like we're not telling the seller they can't pay anybody. We're just not setting that number for the other party. It's their responsibility to bring that number to the table.
So just to be clear, we're not saying that we are now only working for our own compensation, but we are saying that if it makes sense in the marketplace for them to offer some sort of a payment.
Yes, so we are saying, hey seller, you need to anticipate the buyer needing assistance paying buyer broker compensation.
Bingo.
There is a box you can check that says, yes, you allow me to talk about that.
Right, but it's per listing, per person, per situation.
And it always has been.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like it's always been like that, but now it's in a mega spotlight.
Yeah.
And we do need to handle things slightly different to keep everybody safe.
Right.
No one wants to get sued.
No.
I do not want to. No one wants to. So are there ways for us to go about it, which to avoid that? And yes, that's go ahead and decouple the compensation. There's amendments that address it. The new contract's going to address it. I mean, everything's laid out for us to do that. So, hey seller, here's what we're going to do. Buyer is responsible for bringing it. We need to anticipate that you're still going to need to help cover that cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. What is the seller always worried about? What is their ultimate?
The net.
Oh my goodness. You mean like how much money they take home?
Correct.
Okay, so guess what? That's still happening.
That hasn't changed
How many-
with all the lawsuits and stuff?
No, they still care about how much money they make.
Weird. Okay,
Right?
cool.
It's one of their largest investments, and guess what? They want to capitalize on it, and that's still the goal at the end of the day.
Okay.
How many times have we given up compensation to keep a deal alive?
More than I'd care to tell you on camera.
Or maybe it's a really hot market, and so we were paying things like home warranties.
Right.
Hey, we'll cover that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, something's really wrong, and if we don't all work on this together, if I don't give a little bit to that buyer, to that seller, we're not going to be able to get the deal done. Right?
Yeah.
We've all done that. So compensation has always been negotiable. Sometimes throughout the process, I've had to give up something to go from there. That's still all there. The seller needs to anticipate needing to help cover that.
Right.
They might only be able to afford to cover X amount, which was what we just disclosed up front last time. Now we're just saying, hey, bring it to us.
Right.
Yes, they're willing to pay something.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in your offer. Put it in your offer. Put it in the offer.
Right.
Put it in your offer, right? Like
put it in the offer.
Yeah, that's what you should be doing. And then we'll start negotiating, just like the price or the terms or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to make sure that it's there and that we're talking about it, and that then whenever we say, hey, make sure you understand that the seller is paying the buyer broker directly. Right? Like that's how we're going to do it. Now, if you're the buyer and you're bringing in, right now we have an addendum that says, how's it getting paid out, and we're choosing that the seller to pay the buyer broker directly.
Right.
Well, if your listing agreement didn't reflect that, you have to go back and have a conversation that explains that hey, they're just saying pay them directly.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are we going to do? And then when are you going to pay them directly?
Right.
But people are kind of pushing back that they want to avoid that conversation because that's not the way we do it. We're not changing yet. We're keeping it like the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's one conversation. Don't avoid the conversation. Get comfortable having it because it's not going away.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a lot. I'm sorry we went kind of on a tangent about it, but
I think it was good.
Making sure that you understand all sides of it, making sure that who you're listening to, because from a national to a state to local, etc., it matters what you're listening to and how that's actually handled in your state and in your brokerage.
Right.
That's a big deal. Staying up to date, listening to things, knowing both sides of the contract. There's multiple ways to do things, and right now is the time as professionals to band together and listen for that clarity and understand versus just saying nope. That's not how we do it, so you're
weird.
wrong.
I'm not going to do it that way.
Or that's a change, I'm not handling that change right now. I'm not dealing with that change right now, right?
Yeah.
So be open, communicate about it, answer your phone, pick up the phone, make the phone call, have those conversations with the other side so that we can get to the closing table.
Right.
Because that is our ultimate goal.
Absolutely it is.
Okay, is that everything?
That's everything.
For that one.
We're out.
For that one. So, all right.
Thanks for
guys.
coming. You can get us on all of our social medias at btrgpm.com, Instagram, Facebook. I think those are the only two. Check us
everywhere. I feel like Christian links it here.
Yeah,
so y'all just
Fill it out somewhere in
Okay.
this area.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.